Hi everyone, welcome to another CareerFoundry event. First, I'm going to introduce myself. I am Laura, Head of Social at CareerFoundry, and today we have a wonderful presentation and a Q&A session, most importantly, with Florian Bölter on how he's changed careers with a Bildungsgutschein. As some of you already know, Florian is a CareerFoundry grad. He's already done a few presentations and webinars with us, so we're super happy to have him back. He completed the CareerFoundry UI design program and is now working as a product design lead at Heygo. Originally, he studied German literature, but found his way into design through a detour into product management. So quite a career change. Will be super interesting to hear his story. First, we'd love to hear where everyone is joining from. So if you just type on the chat on the right-hand side, tell us where you're joining from, and we'd love to see that. And before we start, just a little bit about CareerFoundry. Before I give Florian the floor, we are an online school in which we teach UI design, UX design, data analytics, web development, digital marketing, and product management. And we help everyone get their dream job in tech. On our programs, we have a dual mentorship model with a mentor and a tutor, but we also have a career specialist, and everybody's here to support you and help you get that job into tech. So with that being said, we are super happy to have Florian with us today, and I hope everyone enjoys the webinar. I'll now give Florian the floor and disappear into the background. Florian, the floor is yours, and then we'll head to the Q&A. So talk soon.
Thank you, Linda. Talk soon. Yeah, hi, everyone. So my name is Florian. Linda already introduced me. I don't think there's too much that I can add. We'll go into a few of the details on what I used to do, what I then did with CareerFoundry, and what I'm doing now, and how I feel about all of that, and how you might be able to achieve that as well. I prepared a few slides for you. I hope, they will just be support, I guess. They won't be too boring, so no worries. This is not a 60-minute PowerPoint you need to sit through. So hopefully you'll be able to enjoy that. And obviously, in the end, we'll get to the questions. You can ask everything that you want about my path, about what that could mean for you, and obviously we'll have some prepared questions from Linda as well. So let's get right into it. Oh, I see you're starting to trickle in the places that you come from. That's all Germany. A lot of Berlin there. Good to see. You can't hear me. I hope that is not on my end. I don't know, Linda, could you just give me a real quick sign if you can hear me, because that would be great to make sure of, because on my end it looks like okay, everyone can hear me. So Marina, you might want to check on your end then. Cool, let's start. So what I'm going to talk to you about today, before we come to the Q&A, is going to be, I'm going to introduce CareerFoundry real quick once more. Then we'll talk about who I am, just basic, and then we'll talk about my background before I changed my careers. I kind of changed my careers before already. You'll see what I mean about that. But yeah, when I refer to career change, I mean becoming a designer, basically, becoming a product designer. Then how I dealt with the Bildungsgutschein, the AFA, so Agentur for Arbeit, and CareerFoundry, and then eventually how I got from graduating that course with CareerFoundry to actually scoring a job. And then in the end, I'll talk a little bit about what my life as a designer is like now. You get to ask all the questions afterwards. So about CareerFoundry real quick. So CareerFoundry is specialized in helping anyone who wants to change into a career in tech do so. There's a big community of active students. There's an active Slack channel that you'll get to use if you're a student to connect with all the other students from both your program and the other programs. There's so many graduates all over the world, a huge network of mentors, tutors, and career specialists that are there to help you transition into a new career. They are training students from scratch in the fields of UX, UI, web development, data analytics, and what's missing here is product management and marketing, digital marketing. So if you have any questions about CareerFoundry, obviously still ask. That is me. Yeah, so I started my design journey with CareerFoundry in 2020, and I did the UI course, which is something I get a lot of questions about, like why that course. We'll get into the details of that a little bit later as well, because a lot of people choose the UX course and then always ask, why did you choose that? But we'll find out about that in a bit. I'm now working as a lead product designer at Heygo, which is a Series A funded startup developing a streaming platform for travel, often called Twitch for travel, and with startup magazines, whatever. I worked there for 2 years, nearly 2 years now. So started in March 2021 and have been there ever since. And I am about to launch a job board for junior designers as kind of a side project. So I've always wanted to do something on the side, like a little bit of having fun, designing something, building something that I believed in, and that is a job board that for junior designers, which might be you in a little bit. Yeah, look out for that. Okay. So my background. I started studying in 2011, I think, and I studied literature, German literature and philosophy. Started out with a bachelor degree, which I finished, and then proceeded to do a master's degree with specialization in German literature. At that point, I'm going to be honest, I could have stopped after the bachelor and probably shouldn't have done the master's because it was just I was trying to get into academics, but I don't know if any of you either background in academics, like as a researcher or something, or if you ever encountered that, but especially in things like literature and philosophy, it's tough. It's a very tough environment. You have to move places a lot. Nothing is funded, and it's a really, really hard time. So, and eventually it comes down to being the very best of the very best. And while it was quite good, I think, but at least based on my grades, that was still not enough to just like walk through the doors without, much resistance. So at some point I knew that this wouldn't pan out the way in the beginning I thought it would pan out. So I was starting to think about other possible paths. While I was studying, I had a student job, which then transitioned into a part-time job when I finished my studies in a publishing house. That publishing house was mainly dealing in academic literature, so not like novels, more like textbooks for history, for example, history students, politics, things like that. And they were lacking a digital strategy when I joined. And I was always very, I grew up with computers. I grew up in a digital environment, I'd say. And I was always keen on everything that was digital. So they asked me to develop workflows for like getting all of their printed books into digital publications they could sell through Google Books and other channels. And then I went on and did that, and I found it fun. It was really fun to work on something like that and to just develop a solution from the ground, from zero, from scratch. Also dabbled in online marketing while I was there. So there were a lot of marketing efforts. Marketing academic literature is not as easy as marketing a novel. Well, I won't say it's easy marketing a novel, but it's different, very different. And there are more obvious paths there. And then also obviously did some layout because those books still, even when they become digital books, they still need a proper layout, which I guess was kind of one of the first touch points with visual hierarchy and things like that. As I said, I transitioned into a part-time job there. However, it was a very small publishing house, and the means that they had to pay me were very, very limited. So I was working there with the part-time job already maxing out what they could do for me, basically. And even though I was very fond of the people there, at some point I had to think about something, more robust, more sustainable for me, moving forward, and something that would actually, give me any prospects of a career. So I looked around, and in the city I live in, which is Hanover in Germany, I found a job as a product manager with a smaller software company. That company was looking for someone who would, carry their software product, which was a product that mainly dealt with process and project management. They wanted someone to carry that forward and basically get it into shape, so to speak. So I don't know how much you know about what a product manager does, but basically I handled requirements. So basically trying to find out what it is that we should develop next, and then making sure that I communicate with the developers and everyone else involved, so the stakeholders, to make sure it gets built, and it gets built on time, and is delivered in a way that makes the customer happy, or the user in the end. I was working in cross-functional teams. There was always talking and communication between different teams, which were the developers, the support team, and the sales team as well. This company, though, they didn't have a designer, like, at all. It was a very traditional company, and the design part, they kind of skipped that. Usually it was back then the CEO doing that, to not always to success, to be 100% honest with you. And then eventually when I came and started to analyze the situation of what we have here, what kind of resources are there, and seeing that developers were always asking, how should that look? How should I build that? Like, what should the flow be for this particular function? I started to see a need for, someone doing this. I didn't know back then that was already, to an extent, UX design. But I started reading up on it, and slowly, those things grew on me. So I started doing that in order to just make everything more efficient in that company, because whenever those developers had to ask these questions, they had to stop working, or they had to come to me to, communicate with me or the CEO, and that obviously costs time. So I started to sketch out the basic things that they were to build. Started to sketch out flows with charts, so they would know what is doing what, basically. And then as I read up on design, I also found out, well, there's such a thing as talking to your users, which was rarely done, aside from basically getting a feature request. There was no other big communication between that company and their users. So I started doing that by just sometimes I sat across one of the sales assistants, and she often had those clients on the phone, those customers and users. And I was like, can you just give that, after you're done with your call, can you just forward her to me, or forward them to me, so I can talk to them? So I was doing basic user research by asking them questions and interviewing them to an extent about what worked for them and what didn't. And that was how I started to learn about design. So I spent 1 year in this company, but as I said, it was a very traditional company, and it was could be quite a tough environment at times, because everything that I was doing was very new to them, and they were still used to, working in their old ways, and that didn't always work out. So at some point I became frustrated, and I didn't see any future in that company. So I looked up, what can you do? What is that? And I looked back at what I did as a product manager and realized that what I was enjoying most was actually the design part, sketching out these things and finding those user flows and talking to the users. That was really fun. That was something that I enjoyed deeply. So I basically inquired about how to maybe get into design. But at that point, I still doubted that would be possible, because I thought you would have to have studied something visual at least, or at least be a graphic designer, something like that, in order to be able to change into like your career to something like that. While with the product management, those were all skills that didn't require, putting something down on a canvas. So I thought, I was a lot more confident when I started that job. But I eventually found CareerFoundry, attended an event just like you are doing right now, and also did those email courses that CareerFoundry offers. So if you haven't done them yet, I absolutely recommend you doing them. So there are 2 courses, one for UX and one for UI. You can take them for free. They last 7 days, and they'll consist of an email each day, which will give you a good introduction into what UX or UI is about. And based on that course, I decided that I would probably be best doing, sorry, I need to drink something real quick. I would be best doing UI. Why is that? Because I was basically already self-taught UX to an extent. I already had skills that were necessary to be a UX designer already before I even started that product management job, which is general analytical skills and just overall, the ability to communicate very efficiently, things like that. But what I was lacking were the visual skills. So I thought UI design would be a good choice. And like, long story short, I still think it was the right choice for me. Obviously, that doesn't mean that it's the right choice for you. Maybe you have been a graphic designer in the past. Then maybe the UX design will actually benefit you more, because you might be lacking those more structural and like conceptual things, while your visual skills are actually really good already. So, and by the way, both courses contain parts of the other. So you'll never just learn UX, you always learn a bit of UI, or you never just learn UI, you also learn some UX. So in 2020, COVID just started, by the way, like literally, I think a month ago, I quit my job. But I had to, the CareerFoundry thing happened a little later, so I was unemployed for a little while. And now I had to deal with the AFA, the Agentur for Arbeit, and learned about something that's called the Bildungsgutschein. I don't know. I think there's no proper English word for this one. But you probably know what it is. So basically, it is a voucher for getting an education that will help you transition into a job a lot better than you currently, are able to. So what did I do? So I spoke to my contact at the Agentur für Arbeit first. That's the person that is sending you job recommendations to apply to. That's the person that you probably had your first talk with when you first filed for unemployment. And I talked to her and said, based on what I looked up and based on what I did previously, I think that this course, I already had CareerFoundry singled out by then, and knew that they were funded by, that they would be able to do that course with the Bildungsgutschein. So I told her that I think this would up my chances by a lot. And she said, well, obviously always consider this. That's what the Bildungsgutschein is there for. But you need to have some proof that this will actually up your chances. So I went back and spoke with CareerFoundry, who will gladly assist you in preparing your application for the Bildungsgutschein. And well, basically what you do is you take a look at jobs in your surroundings or jobs in places that you're open to apply to, and then show a couple of jobs in the field that are available to show that there is demand. You basically also tell them how this will complement your existing skill set, and then you write all of that up and send it to your contact at the Agentur für Arbeit. And eventually I submitted that and prepared a little talk through. So she wanted to have a call again This, by the way, might differ in depending on your contact at the Agentur for Arbeit and depending on your the state you're living in. It might be different. It might be slightly different, but that is just how it was for me and how it was also for some other people that I know from my city that attended CareerFoundry with the Bildungsgutschein. So eventually we had another talk on the phone. There were some other things that she wanted to see, basically, like overall some statistics on like how well, how much UX designers are in demand. But there's a lot of articles and material out there for you to, to show. So no worries about that. And eventually I was granted the Bildungsgutschein and was able to start my CareerFoundry journey through the AFA. There are some conditions to that. So you need to be able to put in enough time into the course every week. However, I always found those goals very, very manageable. And as I was very eager to learn all these things, that came as a natural anyway. So it never felt like I was under pressure there. I personally always enjoyed going through the course and meeting those criteria. So I went through the course. As I said, it was a really lovely experience. I had a mentor that was at my side whenever I had questions about design. I had a tutor who was mostly grading my work, and I later on also had a career advisor who helped me basically take my existing skills, the skills that I already acquired in past jobs and careers in my studies, and repackage those into something that aligns with what you need to land a job in design. So basically, he sat down with me and looked at what I did and found all the things that are applicable for a design role and listed them out on my CV together with me and helped me find a strategy on how to apply for jobs and how to sell myself in the right way so that I would be considered for a job without having actual job experience. So in October 2020, I graduated. I think I started the course in July. I did it full time. As I said, I was unemployed at the time, so I had the time. I was always told I was quite quick, so some people might take a month longer. But for me, it was from July until October, end of October. And that was the time where I started looking into jobs, started applying, started prepare my CVs, and finished working on my portfolio, which was kind of wrapped up by then from the course already. But obviously I wanted some polish. Then by December, I was able to find an internship with a UK-based startup. So that was remote. And that was unpaid. That was fine for me in my situation. I was fine with that. You don't need to be. Don't get the impression that you need to do this. 90% of the people I know that graduated CareerFoundry with Bildungsgutschein or not, they never did an unpaid internship and got a job, or even more than 90% probably. That's just a number I made up, but it's the vast majority. I just personally was in a situation where I wanted the experience. I loved the guys at that startup. They were really good guys, and I'd enjoyed working with them, and I had the time. And I stayed there around 3 months until March 2021, when I signed my contract with the company I'm with now, which is Heygo, and became their first product designer and led on all their design efforts for a while until head of design, which then was my manager, joined the company to build a proper team around me. And yeah, in July 2022, the whole company underwent a big restructure and everything, like my team was dissolved to an extent, and I'm now the only designer again, leading all of the design efforts, hence the promotion. But at that point, they decided to keep me in order to be able to lead all of this, knowing the company and having been the only designer once before, and apparently I did a good job there. So yeah, that's kind of my path, very condensed, obviously. because we want to get to the questions soon. But yeah, CareerFoundry was there all of the way, and the contract with Heygo, at that point I was still in touch with my career advisor, and he was still open to all of my questions, and he helped me navigating everything from sending out my first applications to the last interviews that I had. I had a couple of interviews, started to land interviews like January 2021, and then eventually in March 2021 the right one came along that I actually ended up taking. But I had multiple offers at that time. Gotta be 100% honest about that. There were 3 offers on my table, and I had the luxury of choosing which one to take, which obviously is a great thing. And I know a lot of people who had a similar situation that graduated CareerFoundry. So yeah, my life as a designer now, as I said before, I work in a UK-based startup remotely. We have Series A funding, which is quite a bit. We're Twitch for travel, so we have live streams all around the world, in places all around the world, so you can virtually travel to them, and with people guiding you around live, so you can interact with them and everything. We are currently 17 people spread all across the world, I'd say, UK, US, Canada, Germany, and some other countries as well. I'm fully remote, working from home, enjoying great flexibility through that. We're coming together every 3 months in some usually nice place in the UK to work together and have a bit of fun together as well. And yeah, I got to work on a product that is both available on web and in a mobile app, in a native mobile app. So I'm spanning everything here, and it's great to get that experience, especially in my first real job, first full-time design job. And I'm very, very happy where I am. I mean, you can see I'm here for 2 years now, which is not because of the lack of other, recruiters asking me in my inbox if I wanted to join a different company, but because I'm very, very happy where I am at the moment. And I think that's it. You can ask me anything that you want, but I think that Linda has some questions for me.
Hi, Florian. Thank you so much. This has been super informative look at your career change journey. Now, before we jump onto the questions, I just want to remind everyone that we will be sending you a recording of this webinar. So if you missed anything, you can rewatch it later. For those of you who joined just now, we are having a Q&A with Florian. Florian is now a product designer. He used the Bildungsgutschein, which is an educational voucher issued by the German government, by the German Job Center, to become a fully-fledged UI designer with CareerFoundry free of charge in a matter of months, which is fantastic for anyone considering a career change and living in Germany. So if anyone out there is currently unemployed, living in Germany, and thinking about making a career change into tech, please click the sticky note on the right-hand side to book a call with a program advisor and find out more. With this, let's take a few questions and start our Q&A. So we have plenty of questions, Florian, about the process of signing up for a Bildungsgutschein. So first, let's go with how easy it was for you to sign up for a Bildungsgutschein, and what's the main advice you give to someone considering this route to do a career change with CareerFoundry?
Mm-hmm. So overall, I think it was very easy. 100% honest. Like, it was not hard. It was not some kind of formal, 10-page application where you need to fill out thousands of forms, as you would expect with the Agentur for Arbeit, by the way. Like, I mean, we all know that bureaucracy in Germany can be quite extensive. So, but that's not the case. There's a small document that you need to fill out. I'm not too sure if it's available in English as well. I think I filled it out in German. But even then, it's not too long. So you need to fill out some basic information and then apply for it. And again, the CareerFoundry, I think, is pretty happy to help you with that as well, by the way. There's some guidance on that. And then for my tips, so I always say, come prepared. So basically, find a few jobs that are in the area that you're looking for jobs. So if you're in Berlin, for example, look for UX jobs or design jobs in Berlin that you would theoretically be able to apply to if you did the course. Find 5 to 10. You won't have a hard time because there is still a lot of demand on the market for these jobs. And then find some statistics on how designers are really in demand right now, which is also still very much true. A simple Google search will help you with that. And then, well, just prepare to make your case in front of your point of contact at the Agentur für Arbeit, and make sure that you have everything lined up, and maybe check if there's something in your past career. So if you, for example, have been a graphic designer, that is a very easy sell, I'd say personally. If you did something else that doesn't hold you back, I'd say. I think at CareerFoundry we've had everyone, like every single career path you can imagine, transition into design. I've heard a lot for sure, a lot of different past careers, and then just make sure that you tell them how skills that you already have like apply to design, and and make your case. That's what I would say.
Thank you. And now a specific question in terms of the time frame. Lily wants to know, how much time did it take after the start of your unemployment to get the Bildungsgutschein? Does AFA work did you have to wait too long? What did that look like for you?
No, so I can give you a timeline. What's to keep in mind is that I did not immediately apply for the Bildungsgutschein when I became unemployed. So I became unemployed in March 2020. And then I took 2 months to spend some time with my then, I think, not even 1-year-old son to just get some family time. And then started to look into everything, which was in end of May. And beginning of June, I first applied for the Bildungsgutschein, and then started my course in the first week of July. So it took me a month. However, I got to say that was like peak time of COVID, and they were completely overwhelmed at the Agentur für Arbeit with everything, because they were just all starting to work from home. No one had an idea on how to do that at their place, and it was a bit of chaos, so that everything took a bit longer than it usually does. So I'd say probably a fair estimate is like 2 to 3 weeks to get it all done. Obviously, always depends on circumstances, like who's your contact, how are they working, and everything like that. But yeah, that was something.
Thank you so much. That was pretty quickly. So you applied right at the beginning of the pandemic, pretty much.
Yeah, a few months in. I think that was quite a peak time there in summer. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. We also have a question from Shelley about payment. So what portion did the Gutschein cover from the total cost of the course?
Everything.
Everything.
So that is, it's 100%. And I think there is no other option really. Even if you take the course part-time, which I think is something that is generally possible if your circumstances only allow that. But and even then, I think it's still 100% funded.
Wow, it's a perfect opportunity to basically change your entire career if you're super sure about it. Our next question is, how can I network effectively in the product design industry to build relationships and increase my chances of finding job opportunities?
It's a very good question, because networking is indeed quite important. So just for reference, the internship I did, one of the founders studied in university together with the founder of the company I work for now. That I didn't find out until I got into the last round, because that was the point where they asked for recommendations, and they started to notice too. So, but eventually, I think that definitely helped a little bit, at least. How to network effectively. So LinkedIn is your best friend for sure. LinkedIn is always a good place to get in touch with people and start to communicate with them, for sure. There are other places like ADP List, for example, where you can like just get questions answered and like get to talk with people, very very experienced people as well, from companies all over the world, from companies with big names, if you want to. So this is also something. And as for like an approach, so make sure that you always come with a topic that you'd like to discuss, and with like a tangible thing to talk about, instead of just like saying, hey, I want to connect, I just want to have you in my network. You will never start a real conversation based on that. So just like make sure that instead of firing out connection requests to hundreds of people, pick out 10 to 20 people you really want to talk to, because they really work at companies that you would love to work at, or have a role that you would like to have, not their role, but like a similar role, and then start talking to them about what it is like working in that company, working in that role, and stuff like that. Ask tangible questions and be modest about it. That's I think advice I could give.
That's a great question and a great answer, because I feel like after the pandemic, it's been a couple years where I think people have lost a bit of practice in networking in real life, right? So
yeah, I even forgot about real life events. Like obviously, if you live in Berlin, there's a lot of design meetups that are happening that you can just go to, talk to people there, listen to their presentations. They often have speakers from really cool companies that you can get in touch with after the event. Always like definitely make sure to check that out. If you live in like Berlin, Cologne, Munich, those are cities that often have these events. For example, my city in Hanover, there's nothing. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't. I have to go to other cities. But like, if you live in a bigger city, definitely check that out.
Amazing. Well, whenever you want to come to Berlin, you can come by CareerFoundry offices. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of questions. Half of the questions are about Bildungsgutschein, and half of them are about career changing. So I'm going to try to balance it out, because they're all amazing questions. So here's a really good one about Bildungsgutschein specifically. Was it ever a problem if you quit your job as opposed to being fired to get a Bildungsgutschein? And how important is your past career if your old job is still in demand, for example?
Okay, yeah, this is a very good one. So there's two questions. So first one, the job. So what I did a very stupid thing when in the company that I worked for with the product management role. So what I did was I basically said, I'm not happy here anymore, and I'm thinking about quitting. And they were like, okay, let's make an agreement to release you off your contract immediately, which was not firing me, but basically, it was sort of quitting my job, but like with a few extras here and there. So if I would have been very smart, I would have had them fire me, to be honest. So because then I would have been eligible immediately for everything. But if you quit or have this kind of agreement, you have a 3-month or 2-month block basically on your benefits. I'm not 100% sure if that also applies to the Bildungsgutschein. It might, because for me that 3-month period was just over when I got it. So it might be that there's a connection. I'm not 100% sure about it, but if you just quit your job, that's not making you less eligible overall. So if you quit your job, or you have an agreement like I did, then you can still apply for that. And I think by law your chances have to be the same to get it. It's not about having quit your job or not to get it. So that's question one. Question two is, well, I guess it depends a bit on how much in demand it is. The Agentur for Arbeit will keep on sending you jobs to apply to, basically when you file for unemployment. And while you don't have to take any of the jobs they give you, you have to at some point show effort. And if they keep sending you tons of jobs and you're asking about a Bildungsgutschein, it might be that it could be tough for you to convince your convince your point of contact. However, if you tell them that you are really happy in this current career, even though it is in demand, but you're really, really unhappy in it, and even if you start that job, there's a good chance you'll land in front of them in half a year again because you can't take it anymore. That is something that will appeal to the human side of your point of contact at the Agentur for Arbeit, and if that's the right person at the other side of the desk there, they will still think about giving you that Bildungsgutschein, for sure, because that was also an argument that my point of contact brought up. Like, I can find jobs in product management here, like in Hanover. There are not a lot, but there are some. But I was like, I'm not really happy with that anymore. Like, there's a reason I want to do this, and there's a good chance I'll be in front of you again very soon if I just take that next best job. And that helped. That convinced her.
That's a great question, because I think most people think you can only take advantage of that benefit if you are fired. But yeah, even if you quit, that's also an avenue that you have to change careers and free of charge, which is great. Now, switching on to the career change side of the conversation, what has been the most rewarding, but also what has been the most challenging part of your career change into UI and product design?
So the most rewarding one was, there were so many rewarding ones, to be honest. But I think the first one was just seeing that the immediate results you get in the course, like how fast you put out some designs. And even though looking back at them, obviously, like, they were horrible, like the first ones, when you finish them for the first time, you think you're the best one, and you just love them. You're very proud of your achievements there. And so every milestone I hit in the course was definitely a big achievement, and it felt very rewarding. The overall course did, like, finishing the course obviously felt very rewarding as well. So that was really great. And then finishing up, your portfolio, seeing the projects you worked on for a couple of months now, all nice and shiny in your portfolio. That was a nice feeling as well. What was challenging? So I won't sugarcoat it. The job search is like ups and downs. For only a fraction of people, it's a straight line, or like just a line up, and then everything is good. It's very often ups and downs. And there were like one or two points where I was like, the right job will never come around, and I don't know what to do anymore to like get past these the screener interviews or whatever. These were challenging times at times. But then, as I said, in the matter of 2 weeks, ending up with 3 offers on my table, one better than the other, and even having more interviews lined up theoretically, that was a really rewarding and great feeling. And that was obviously the result of like a few months long job search, but still like worth every second of it.
And on that same topic, because you did the course, of course, you finished your portfolio, you now had some experience working in the field. So with all of that knowledge, what skills and knowledge do you think are necessary to succeed in the product design field, and how can people acquire them?
Very good question. So, I mean, yes, the basics of UX and UI are very important. You learn all of that in the course, so don't worry about that. Like, if you decide to take a course, everything that is involved in the normal design process, you'll be taught, and that is also what you need. I'd say there are sometimes things that I did in the course and I didn't really do afterwards, like some small techniques, little things that happens, but then for others they actually end up doing them, so that is just me. But there are obviously a few things, and those are more more soft skills than hard skills, that are quite relevant, especially to the product design role. And I think one is stakeholder management. The quicker you learn how to manage the expectations of everyone around you. That goes for both other designers and people in other teams like engineers, product managers, but also managers on higher levels like CEOs, depending on the organization you work on. The quicker you learn that, the quicker you step up the ladder. It's not about those shiny Figma skills. Obviously, if you can produce really great UI, that's also going to help you. But if you learn to manage, people and how to deal with people, and how to balance requirements and balance opinions, you're going to step up way faster on the career ladder than you will if you just focus on getting your UI skills perfect. That is still part of it, but it's not the only thing. So stakeholder management for sure, and I think just not getting too attached to things. Especially designers, they can be super precious about their work, and I get it. When I finish something, sometimes I think yeah, that is really, really great. You really outdid yourself there. But it's super important to be responsive to feedback and to make sure that anyone can come in at any time and say, this is really bad, redo it, or this is not meeting the requirements at all. Obviously, you can always challenge that on a reasonable level, because if you think you met the requirements there, then you can discuss that. But still, you should not feel personally attacked by that. So learning that, and everyone needs to learn that. I think 1% probably already have that skill when they come into that career. But everyone can learn it to an extent. Obviously, there are always unreasonable people who voice feedback in a non-appropriate way, and you don't have to put up with that. But you should always have some level of detachment from your work. That's something to learn as well. So there's more I could go on, but those are the essentials.
Yeah, but I think that's a great answer. I think, interpersonal skills, like you said, but also learning how to take feedback. Because I think also when students start out as junior UX designers, junior UI designers, that's one of the hardest things for them to learn, is how to take feedback objectively, and apply it or challenge it in a way that's still professional. So
very, very.
Well, we have another question. We've been receiving a lot of these AI-related questions, so let's see what you think. Someone, Sean, is asking, how do you see AI technologies influencing the design industry, and are you concerned or excited by these prospects?
Yeah, so I'm absolutely not concerned. I'm using ChatGPT regularly because, for example, my copywriting for designs is really bad sometimes, and ChatGPT can really help you. So for me, AI at the moment is a really, really good new tool in our toolbox, and that is, I won't say consensus. There's always a few voices on each side, but a lot of influential designers that I follow have the same opinion that I have, which is that AI will help us produce better designs more quickly. However, it will not take over our job, because there's so much more that AI can't do at the moment, and is quite far away from being able to do, that we still do. Like user research, for example, it can write the script, but it cannot actually run the interviews, the sessions. And it can, it can assist you in so many ways and make you more efficient. And I would always urge you to explore these tools and make use of them, because other ones will, and you probably too. But it's not going to be the case that I think in 5 years, no one's going to hire designers anymore because AI can just do it. Because there's so much more to it. That if you want just an example of that, just give AI basic information on an app and let it do the user flows and everything. It will make up a lot of stuff just based on assumptions, and do something that is not really usable. So at the moment, obviously there's going to be changes, but our roles will transition with this. I don't think it will just make them obsolete. That won't happen in the near future.
Good to know. It's funny because we had a webinar this week also with Dr. Humera on data analytics, and we also received a question on whether data analysts should be concerned about AI. And she's also a pro at what she does, and she's so knowledgeable. And I thought she shared a really insightful thought, which was AI won't take our jobs, but the people who know how to use AI to their benefit in their jobs,
Yes.
they will take our jobs. So
That's 100% on that. Like that is exactly. Maybe for data analysts, that is even more relevant than for designers, because for us, there's a lot more that AI is still not super good at. Well, with data, obviously, that's kind of what AI was made for, current iteration. But yeah, I agree with that.
Agreed. Next up, we have an excellent question from Sophia. Sophia says, I was a senior product manager who has worked with quite a lot of designers. If I finish this UX course, is it realistic to expect that I won't need to start as a complete junior UI UX designer? What do you think?
100%. That is a very realistic expectation. So, first of all, these role titles, they don't mean too much all of the, at times. There's people that have, for example, I'm currently holding a lead title, which is quite, like, for the experience that I have, it's quite unusual. But that's not because I'm like the top 1% super over the top guy. That's just because circumstances happened and I got that title somehow. And if I change the company, I'm probably going to become a senior again. These titles don't always change the way up. Sometimes they go down again, but that doesn't mean that your salary decreases or like the things that you do change too much. It's just every company handles that differently, which means that you might find a role that has senior pay but doesn't have the title, which should be okay. The title at the end is just that, a title. For example, I know someone who has been a lead designer at a very, very successful startup and then transitioned to Netflix and is now just a product designer on the mid-level, so to speak. Nothing changed about salary and anything, like obviously increased while changing the job and everything, but like these things are very fluid. So the skills that you already bring as a senior PM make you very, very valuable as a designer as well. I'd say, like, a lot of the things that product designers do, you've already done in your past job, and having been a senior there will greatly benefit you transitioning into design. So I'm pretty sure you will find a role that is not a junior role and be very successful.
Well said. We have Sophia says, thanks. That sounds promising. We have a question from Diana, who may or may not be considering a move to Germany because she wants to know, how many hours a week do you work in Germany?
Okay. So first of all, I work for a UK-based startup. And while I have a German contract with them through another company, it might differ the way I work. I don't know, but I think in my contract it is a 37.5 hour week that I have. That is usually that or 40 hours is like full-time contract usually in Germany. And there in Germany there is a law that dictates that time needs to be tracked. Not every company does it, but at the end of the day, you can always fall back to it if your company is trying to like make you work, overtime a lot. But then you might be in the wrong place anyway, to be fair. But yeah, that's I guess is like a normal full-time work week. But I work in a remote company. I have great flexibility, so I don't count my hours, to be honest. I have set focus hours in my calendar where I always work. I have set meeting times in my calendar that I always attend. But everything around that is subject to like, where are we right now? How much of my work is needed right now? Is there stuff going on in my life as well? So some weeks I work less. Some weeks I might work a little bit more. But to be honest, I don't notice. That's just me though.
And we have also a question about salary. I know these ones are tricky. It depends a lot on your experience and on where you've worked.
Yeah, it depends on so many things: location, experience, and everything. I can say about like for Berlin and for London, I roughly know the numbers, but they might have even changed a little bit since I last, came in touch with them because of inflation and everything. But so in Berlin, I think these for juniors, it's usually starting around like 36K per year and going up to 45. That is like a range. It's a big range, but it's a range that's kind of realistic. Could be a little bit more, a little bit less is more unlikely, I'd say. But it's usually starting around that for juniors. Just like if we're talking about this, if you jump to senior and everything, the increase is quite high sometimes. And for London, it usually starts around 40K pounds. Sometimes a little less. I've seen less. Don't know how well these companies are doing in terms of finding someone, but because London's very expensive, I know that. But yeah, it goes up to like 50K, 40 to 50K pounds is per year is realistic as a junior designer. Again, depends on company, on your skills, on your negotiation, and there's so much at play. But that's a rough number I can give.
Fair. And in terms of building a portfolio, Daniela wants to know, what are some strategies for building a strong portfolio of product design work, and how important is this in securing a job in the field?
Yeah, it's still very important. So there is discussion going on with like, between very influential designers on LinkedIn and stuff that say, you shouldn't need a portfolio these days. I tend to agree on some level. Like once you step higher on the ladder, and at some point, it's not about visuals or anything anymore. It's more about how you manage things. That might be true, but for juniors, it's still very, very relevant, especially for career changes, because this is the only way that you can actually show that you can get this work done. Because you don't have the experience on your CV to prove it, right? Like at least not the direct experience. You have the indirect experience from your past jobs showing that you can do certain things, but obviously you should still be able to show that you can do them in a design context as well. So what's very important is storytelling. Don't just, design some fancy screens, put them onto your portfolio and say, hey, here are all my fancy screens, look at them, that's it. Instead, what you want to do is you want to tell a story in your case study. So you start with how you got introduced to the project and what your role in it was, how it came to be, what the background is. And then you start telling how you started to find the problem, work on the problem, find a solution, deliver the solution, and then testing and everything in between. You want to tell that as a story instead of just like a checklist of things that you've done. Like I can do research, I can do user testing, I can do prototyping. That's not what people want to see. They want to read something that is cohesive, makes sense, and has connections in it. So the other thing that I can say is don't write too much either. Don't write a whole novel. You just need a few sentences and let the images or the sketches, whatever you put, depending on the step in the process, you let them speak. And the words next to it are only, giving some context and basically telling the reader how you got there and then what the next step is. These are a few, but like just portfolio could fill another event, so I won't get into too many details there.
Maybe that'll be our next event. Next up, Anna wants to know, what are your go-to resources for staying up to date with the design and product industry?
So I'm definitely, I'd say I'm usually on top of things. Well, I'm not too passionate about the way. Like for me, those trickle in through different sources. So what I've referenced a couple of times now already is I follow people on LinkedIn, or I connect with them depending on who they are, like what my connection with them is. There are like a handful of people these days that are very active on LinkedIn and that discuss things that are like, trends and certain movements and discussions inside of the design industry, and usually just reading that post, reading through the comments there is already very enlightening and very helpful. Then there is a yearly report on the state of design, and I forgot which company is doing it. I'm not 100% sure. I would have to lie if I need to say it right now. But there is this report, you can Google it, and it always summarizes what happened in design last year, like how much like usage saw, which tool saw, for example, like is Figma still the king? But then also what are visual trends that we've seen across the year, things like that. This is always to be taken with a grain of salt. That also goes for a lot of Instagram accounts. Like, follow them. I do follow them as well. There are a lot out there. But if they just post flashy UI pictures all the time, this is not your perfect reference. You can always take it for inspiration every now and then, but this is usually not reflective of what's the current trends. Well, it is reflective of what people would like to be current trends, but in reality, I tend to look at real products. So whenever there's a new buzzing app that's coming out, everyone's talking about, I download it and I take a look at it from a designer's perspective, and see like, okay, what kind of patterns did they use here? Like, how did they make use of something? And usually at the end of the day, they all use simplicity. They are all very, very simple. Go after this event, go open Instagram and take a look at like how little UI is necessary to make a great product there. That's a very, very good example. And then lastly, there are a lot of great email lists out there, usually done by these influential designers that I already referenced. So if you want some more from them, you can usually get them. They all have their newsletters these days that you can usually subscribe to for free. And I am subscribed to a few of them, so that is a good way. There are other ways. There are books. And I personally don't read too many design books, even though I do read a lot of books in general, but not too many design books. But that's just personal preference. But it's also a way to stay up to date as well.
Great answer. Now, I want to be mindful of time, so I'll take just two more questions. One question from Lily, which is really popular, we get this all the time, is how important are coding skills in UX and UI design and in your job particularly?
Oh yeah, we do get that a lot. So yes, you probably noticed that in a lot of job descriptions, it says like HTML, CSS, and sometimes even like React or JavaScript knowledge is appreciated, or well, required is rarely, but it's often mentioned at least. So that's why this question comes up so often. The reality is, no one wants you to code. There might be a few companies who actually do want that, but they are actually not looking for you as a designer. They are looking for someone who can do it all. That person usually doesn't exist. So stay clear of those. So if it's ever listed as a hard requirement and actually telling you to code, that's probably not a good one to apply to. But that will not happen usually. Why do they ask this then? That's a fair question. They do ask this because you will work together with developers, either in a cross-functional team or in a direct relationship where you hand off your designs to the developer and they are supposed to make it into a real thing. And in order to do that better, it is heavily beneficial if you roughly know what these guys are doing, what's possible, and what might not be possible. So having some basic knowledge of what HTML and CSS is, what you can do, what you can't do, is a great set of skills. if at the end of the day you can actually produce something with it, is a completely different thing, and that is not what the company is looking for. Just as an example, imagine that the same thing with a language. It's a difference if someone is asking of you to have a fully fledged conversation in a language. That is what the developer does, having a fully fledged conversation in their coding language, or if they are asking if someone is able to basically listen to a conversation and get the gist of it, like just from recognizing words and having basic knowledge of the language. That is what they are asking of you. So that when the developers talk about something and break it down a little for you, you get what they mean. And that doesn't mean that you need to have those skills as a junior right away. It's fine if you acquire that over time. By the way, CareerFoundry also offers web development courses specifically for designers so that you can learn these basics. But again, it's not a must. It's more of a thing. They just don't want you to be, to be completely ignorant of that these things exist. That's what they want.
Do you think this is something that can also be learned on the job? Did you learn a little bit more about coding in your role?
I personally had a little bit of knowledge beforehand, just because I always like to dabble with these things. But at the end of the day, what I know and what the guys at my work do, the actual developers, is like two different worlds. So I'm still very far away from that. But you can certainly learn that on a job. Yes, absolutely. And I mean, the thing is that if you don't have these skills, the best way to answer to that, if that ever comes up in an interview, is if someone asks you, like, I don't see any coding skills here. Do you have them? And how will you communicate with the developer? What I would say is, well, I don't have them, but what I would do is I will ask the developer to explain it to me in the simplest way possible, so I can understand and get a better understanding and learn it as we go. And that is usually a good answer. I would phrase it differently than I just did, but that's the gist of it. Basically make sure that you show that you're willing to learn what it takes for them, and not say, no, I can't do that. I don't want to code. I can't do that. I'm too bad at this. That's the wrong path, I'd say.
Definitely. And I think for any career, that's just the right attitude to have. Just that eagerness to learn is always
yeah. In general, that's always a good thing to show.
Cool. So we keep getting a lot of questions, but we'll wrap it up with our last one. We always like to close looking at the future, so to speak. So our last question is, where do you see the field of product design going in the future? Are there any trends we should be aware of?
That's a good question, yeah. So first of all, what you are already seeing and what you will continue to see as the UX and UI jobs as a single thing, they are starting to disappear. Instead, you'll see a lot more UX, UI jobs or product design jobs. There's still a little difference. We never talked about this today, but usually, if you did a UX, UI job, you can also do the product design job and vice versa. So that will continue for sure. So if you're really looking for just a UI job, you might want to look into a product design job that is just focusing on visuals a lot more, which exist. They do exist. They are a bit more specific, but they do exist. So just that being said. Other than that, we already talked about AI. So make sure that you leverage those artificial intelligence skills. Sign up for ChatGPT, and when you design something, ask ChatGPT, for example, for the copy or for the design brief or something like that, and make sure that you start to utilize it and see, start to explore. Don't be afraid of it, and make sure that you are able to list that as a skill, basically, to utilize that. And then lastly, which other trends could be moving forward? So what we're certainly seeing is the web and apps are starting to merge together. We've always had a little trend there, but technology was not really ready yet. So that means that at some point we might not look at like developing just an Android app anymore, but instead we'll look at something that can serve every device on either your browser or the actual device as a native app. So we've started to see that a couple of years ago, but it's now accelerating. And I think when we're sitting in 5 years or something, we'll probably not talk about web and app development or web and app design as a separate thing anymore. It will be one big thing probably. So that being said, if you decide to take the course, make sure that you explore both web and app alike, and make sure that you think about how to connect them as well. That will certainly help you in the future.
Great things to look forward to. And overall, well, first of all, I want to thank you, Florian, for your time and your insights. This was a great presentation, great questions, everyone, as well. I want to be mindful of time. So just to remind everyone that first, we're sending you all a recording of the webinar every time you register for a CareerFoundry webinar. Even if you can't make it and can't watch live, you will receive a recording. So always register if you want to receive a recording via email. Again, if anyone out there is currently unemployed and living in Germany or looking to change careers, quit their job, and thinking about career changing into tech, please click the sticky note on the right-hand side to book a call with a program advisor. We also dropped the link where you can read the most frequently asked questions about the Bildungsgutschein so you can learn more. Please check out the CareerFoundry events page. We will have a lot of great, amazing events on UX design, UI design, data analytics, product management, and more in the coming weeks. So keep an eye out for that. And Florian, thank you so much for taking the time to present today. Again, this was a great session for everyone interested in entering the field. I wish everyone a good evening, a good morning, wherever you are. So until next time, good evening and see you soon, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. I enjoyed it as well. That was a really great session. Thanks.